Well, yeah. Maybe I should get you to sign a waiver. Not responsible. All right, guys. So I got some footage of things, and then I don't have footage of other things, and that's because when shit happens, the first thing that runs through my mind is not going to grab the GoPro. Let me tell you that. So the car did fire, right? Like it did the little, let me turn on and then I'm gonna die almost immediately thing. And we found out that we didn't have the actual tune file that Jerry filled out because that was so long ago during COVID. The C word days. And needless to say, his handheld is now obsolete. He never got his tune file. But the reality is the car should in fact be able to run off of the factory aftermarket control pack. So the number one thing, well, there's two things that are out of range or out of spec as to what the factory setup would be. And one of those things is the IMRS. Did I say that right?
IMRC, I think.
Or IMR, whatever. The charcoal-y canister crap at the back of the intake manifold that everybody, you know, they find a way to hold the flaps open and delete the canisters and all that other stuff. So that was the engine codes that we managed to pull up. And then the other main factor that'll really determine on how one of these new motors is going to run is the MAF sensor. So I unplugged the MAF sensor. Jerry wasn't here, and Jerry wants to be here for the first fire. I hit the key, and then the car wanted to run, and then I was like, holy shit, so I turned the car off. But more importantly, wasn't just for Jerry's sake. The other part of this was wanted to make sure that oil was getting through the motor, because we did the oil pump gears, and you can hear a little bit of ticking from the front of the motor because the chain tensioners haven't got pressure yet, so there's a little bit of ticking noise. And you got to remember, we have a remote oil filter, right? And we have an oil cooler. So I pre-filled the filter to make sure that the engine doesn't have to do as much work, or the oil pump doesn't have to do as much work to try and fill the filter, then push through the filter, go through the cooler, and then back into the motor. Now, with that said, I didn't see any oil when I pulled the oil lines off the the distribution block. That is where the filter would normally go. Now the motor did only run for, it felt like 10 seconds. It was probably really only 5 because I was probably like nervous and like, oh shit, what's going on? You know how it goes. So we've hooked everything back up. I did get Jerry to call, I forget where this pan and pickup was from. Ultimately, we did find out that the pickup is an MMR part. And he managed to contact someone at MMR, and their word of advice was send it. You're never going to build pressure cranking it over with the starter. The motor needs to be running. Not only that, the Gen 3s are a pulse modulated oil pump. So the computer is actually controlling some of your oil pressure on top of everything else. So we're going to crank this thing up, let it run for like 20 seconds. And I've left the port, so you can see this tube right here. This is where there's a T-fitting where we would put the sending unit to run the factory gauge. I want to see oil come out of this. And if we see oil come out of this somewhere between 0 and 20 seconds, I'm going to feel a lot better. The other thing that you could do is you could hook up a mechanical oil pressure gauge and then look for oil that way. But I want to physically see that there is oil passing through this motor and doing what it needs to be doing. So with that said, I'm going to lower the car down, crank it up, and see what happens.
Say when.
I'll just do this.
Hang on. Don't be a bitch. Don't be a punk.
This would make me feel a lot better.
Yeah, no kidding. And then I told him, I said, if worse comes to worse, and we really feel that thing is sticking out of the oil pump, I said, can we just tweak that tube to where it'll go in there? He goes, yeah. Okay.
Ready?
What am I looking for?
Well, you can stand over there. You'll be able to see if there's oil.
Oh, good.
Guys, I started undoing this fitting, which is the out and also the in to the oil filter. And we have a little bit of hope here now, because look at that. That is oil. Some nice 5W20 oil
Texas tea.
that I've got all over the sway bar and everything now, but I do not care.
I'll clean it.
So I feel comfortable. I don't know why the car doesn't want to stay running at the moment. I should have brought my friggin' scan tool.
He's got one across the written barrel here.
He might. Thank you. You should have told me the news first, and I would have come more prepared.
What, and this would actually be on time?
Well, this is the most frustrating thing too, because the car's so close that it's like I don't want to pull it off the lift if it's like, imagine, okay, we didn't find this out, we didn't fire it, we move all this stuff around just to make it sit underneath and misfit, not going to get to it territory for a while, when all we had to do was actually just start the damn car. All right, put it down.
All right.
Holy. Let's see if we have oil here.
Okay.
Because that would indicate that
Let's at least get in there.
it's going through.
Nothing.
Oh. Okay, so that's a little bit of a concern. All right, folks, car ran for a bit, took more lines off. Oil isn't getting much past the oil feed line for the filter. So that is a little concerning us if there's not enough pressure being built. So we're gonna do a little scope on the front of the pan here and see if we can't see where that pickup tube is sitting. All right, been looking for an excuse to test out. I got my colonoscopy tester here, and let's see if we have enough room to sneak this end in there. So it's called the test long. And it's not to measure your crotch, guys, but there we go. Power this guy on. It's got a little thing so you can see this arm, so you can maneuver the end, just the tip. Right? Okay, that's enough. I see the opening.
Okay.
All right, so remove the cap. All right, look at the resolution on this.
Pretty slick, huh?
Yeah. And okay, the light is on. Let's see here.
You're gonna have to go.
Okay, hold this right here.
Underneath that.
Under what? No, I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, okay.
Okay, here, hold this. No, the scope, the camera. Okay, so there it is. Hold on, watch this. I can actually control it from here.
Oh, it's not in there.
It's not in there.
Shit.
Which means we're sucking some air,
Uh-huh.
and we're not getting the proper oiling. We can see there's some oil there. That's a good sign from stuff rotating around. All right. I don't know what that is up there. It's almost like a... Oh, that's the electric fans. It's actually facing itself out now. Okay, there we go. But how cool is that, guys? This scope tool is actually pretty badass, wouldn't you say? So what we're looking at is, how can I explain this by holding the GoPro at the same time? I can probably take a picture of this, photo mode and a video mode. So that way we can actually record some video of what we're doing, right? Moving stuff around.
Mm-hmm.
And then if we're like, oh no, we hit M and then it changes it to camera mode. So I think, ooh, flips it around. That's cool. How would you take a picture if you wanted to? You would think okay. Because we did something near the toolbox there that...
Is there a button on the side or anything?
Oh, yeah.
On the back? There's one on the back, a trigger or something. Or it looks like the power button.
Oh, you're a clever man. There's a trigger that allows you to take a picture. So, got it. We're good. So let's go into our picture taking. There we go. Wish there was a way to hang this. Well, I got to explain what's going on here so people know. All right, this is the pickup tube, and this gap that we see right here should not be there. This needs to be all the way inside here, and I can't remember if that's like a rubber diaphragm or...
Grommet.
It's a grommet. Oh, I did that on my last video. You better chug it. So we need to see about getting this guy to go up in here and staying in there. And unfortunately, I feel like the only way we're going to be able to achieve that is removing the pan. I almost thought that...
And we can get that pan out without dropping the...
Because it goosenecks here, and I thought that maybe... That's the distance from it. I bet you that tap is it.
Take a picture.
And then
you can't because it's closing it.
Yeah, and then I can feel it pushing up, but I don't think it's pushing up enough.
Well, it shouldn't be coming out.
No, it shouldn't be. It should be staying in there.
The way MMR explained it to me is the...
So the question is...
Half the beer gone.
I don't know if we're going to be able to snake that thing out. I think the rack, if we lower the rack...
You don't think we can get the pan out?
Because I don't think this will only slide back so far.
Well, it's just got to drop.
I don't know,
drop
man.
right there.
This is going to be your rodeo, so you got to fix that so you can fix your oil pressure.
Did you bring the retention bar that I...
That's only if you're dropping the K-member.
I thought we were going to be dropping the K-member.
I hope we do not have to drop the K-member. Who wants to drop the K-member again?
Well, it needs to be dropped to put the...
That's only if you have to do that. You don't even know if you have to do that. I didn't even hear any vibrations from the transmission or anything.
Well, I bought the parts, so they're...
I know. Well, anyways. I'm going to have my beer now and hopefully not spill it. Super cool tool, guys. Test long. I will link to this guy because I'm actually really impressed with the resolution quality. You can see we've got a fancy little tool here sitting on top of the motor, and that is called an engine support bar, readily available from your local Harbor Freight, or I'm sure any other tool store you might have in the area. Princess Auto, if you guys are north of the border. And what this guy does is allows you to support your motor by using your inner aprons here as your structural support. And you can get some chains or straps, whatever you feel comfortable with. I managed to sneak chain down around the long tubes on either side, and that should be enough to allow us to drop the K-member down just enough to get that oil pan out, so that way we can get the proper pickup tube installed on this motor. Now, I spoke to Power by the Hour on the phone and talked to them about this issue, and they assured me that theirs is designed in-house and has everything that's required to ensure that that pickup is going to stay in its grommet and feed the pump the oil that it requires to keep things lubricated. So fingers crossed, it's the last time that we have to deal with this motor being supported or the K-member having to get loosened or any of those things. So we'll get the car up in the air and double check the chains, make sure everything is good, and hopefully drop that K-member down and the motor doesn't come crashing down on top of us. So let's get to it. We are almost there. One little trick, or tip, I should say, is see how long that bolt is? That's actually out of, I think it's a steering rack bolt. So I thread that up there, and it's all the way through. And that's just gonna kind of keep this as a guide, because as soon as that bolt comes out of the motor mount position here, the K-member is liable to kind of shift and maybe go somewhere we don't want it in relation to the frame. So in order to keep things lined up, I've got a bolt on each side there, and then I've also thread in a couple here. So that way it's just gonna kind of give a guide point or a reference as this comes down, right? It'll keep it from swaying off too far to one side, especially if you guys are like me right now and working by yourself. And you can see here, I've got another one of these extra long bolts. So I'm gonna actually pull these front ones. I'm gonna try and take this pickup off, but look, see this? It's not even remotely close to staying up in there. Like, I don't know how they ever expected for this to stay in place and for that to ever suck oil. So look at that, pull the pickup tube out, pull the pan out, and hopefully, at least hopefully I can get the pan out. I think I have enough room to do it. And then we'll take a closer look at what the hell's going on here with this MMR style pickup. And the oil pan removed. And the windage tray is also out. So we have our new pickup tube, and the reason why the windage tray is out is because we need to actually add another stud like this one that was used in the previous kit, I believe on this guy.
Yeah, I think so too. I'll go back and double check.
It'll probably be the inner. Okay, so here are both pickup tubes. This is pickup tube a la Power by the Hour. Okay, and this is the one that came out of the car.
MMR.
MMR. So they are both, I think they are. There's a part number etched in there. So factory Ford pickups, okay, that are cut and welded to length so that these pickups will work in a Gen 1, Gen 2 oil pan, correct?
Gen 3, yes, in a Gen 3.
And with a Gen 3 oil pump. So, couple main differences. The main number one is that we have two supports, okay, versus one support. So let's talk about one support real quick, and then we're going to talk about this section here, which actually slides into the bottom of the oil pump. So this guy is designed to go in your pump like so, okay? Now, you see where that notch is? The flat side of this? Well, you would think it would be like right there so that it fits properly. Okay, against the bottom side of the block. See how it touches there and it touches there? More importantly, it touches when it's there. Well, look where the pickup needs to be in order to go onto this stud. Okay?
The hex thing's missing.
Oh yeah, the hex thing is off. So it goes on right about here-ish, probably.
Yeah, probably right there.
And that is really close to that. Now, I guess there is a little bit of clearance, but not as much as I would like to see. So, let's see here. Here, hold the pickup up for me if you don't mind, so that I can explain a little bit without trying to do two things. So this tube is going all the way from this support bracket here, which is actually behind the pickup itself, right? Pickup is here, support bracket is back here, okay? There is nothing that holds that MMR pickup to want to stay in this grommet. Okay, now that's what you're looking for, is for it to, and it's barely anything. Okay, so with the windage tray in place and it's already gone, this was hitting the windage tray and putting the wrong type of pressure here, which was keeping this from wanting to stay in. Although we had it in when we put stuff together, when we put the scope inside the pan, this guy was, it was loose. It was not snug in that rubber grommet, nor does it really want to go in there very far. And that is to the second point. I feel like they're very similar, but with this one having such a flat face flange on it versus this, I feel like this one is going to have an easier time going into that grommet. Now, we did get a brand new grommet as well. Look at that. Because we want to make sure everything is nice and, oh yeah. How does that fit on the other one?
On this one?
Tell me if it feels the same or if it's like a different woman.
She's a little tired.
Is it?
This seems to be a smaller diameter than that.
All right.
And that would be...
So that'd be another issue, right? Because if that isn't firmly pressed against that grommet, it's liable to suck air. And if it's sucking air, it's never going to get the oil pressure that it needs, which is pretty much the scenario that we saw. So in order to get this guy in place, we need to modify the tray wherever that went.
Down here.
So that is where the rear point is, and Jerry's probably gonna have to make a hole somewhere in here. So we will cut that out, and then we're gonna have to replace the main stud or main bolt with this one here. That's gonna allow us to bolt on back here and bolt on right here. So again, this is the power by the hour kit, and I'm confident that we're not going to have anything to worry about in terms of picking up oil once we do this. So on the other hand, it's nice to see that there's a bunch of oil in here. We kind of had it, I don't want to say overfull, but enough where I believe the crank was probably slinging oil up over the crank while things were turning over when we were trying to troubleshoot this issue. So I think we'll be okay. I didn't see a bunch of metal in the oil, so fingers crossed we'll get this swapped out and everything back together, cam member back on, and fire it up, and hopefully see oil all the way through all these lines in the cooler. And we're going to fill all this up as much as we possibly can, just to minimize the amount of work that the motor's gonna, or the pump's gonna have to do initially to get oil circulating through the whole motor. How does that feel versus the new one?
Yeah, it's a little stiffer, but we'll go with the new one.
Cool. All right, Jerry's got the stud replaced with this guy. This has been torqued down to the proper torque. You got it written down somewhere. Sort of looks like 40, 48 plus 90 degrees. with the big old torque wrench there. So that's done. Oh, and then the hex spacer and tube. So the little, what's fastening the pickup onto these guys will be 18 foot-pounds. So Jerry's just cleaning up the windage tray. We've cleaned this up. Got a little bit of pookie on our seams, so those are ready. And windage tray can go on. We did a big clearance hole here. You'll see how that worked out once everything's fastened back together. And should be good to roll. Oh, you know, I just gotta. Jerry doesn't want to torque down bolts because they're nuts, because he says they have nylock.
But it doesn't matter what torque value you put on it, it's got a freaking nylock on it.
So does nylock or thread sealant.
Thread sealant is still liquid.
There's so no, you're gonna tell me that there. Come on now.
There's no resistance in it. All right, which way? I can't remember. This came up this way.
So Jerry doesn't use a torque wrench on any nylock nuts.
I didn't
just
say
FYI.
that. I just said there's no point.
So when you do your struts, the strut bolts on the top of your car.
No, I hammer that fucker down. Hammer it. Hammer it.
Send it. So you torque it.
Send it.
So you're torquing it. You don't say, oh, it's tight, and because it's nylock, it means it's tight.
Not to a specific
just because it's snug, it's tight. That's what he's saying.
Boy.
So anyways, get this out of here for a second. We got to show the work.
Oh, man.
All right, so now we have support back here. We have support right here. We had to cut the little section out here of the old windage tray. And that pickup tube is, I'm a million times more confident. Look at this guy over here sweating. 85 degrees out today, and he's already fearing the Texas summer. So
I don't come out in the summer.
Time to get the pan back on. Once the pan is back on, everything else gets to go back together. But here we go, guys. Important lesson learned about this pickup tube. For anybody that's got the MMR one, if you've had success and not had any issues, well, good for you. However, this makes me feel a million times better based on all the things that we spoke about earlier. So I'm confident we'll be seeing lots of oil moving.
And the diameter of the actual
fitting
is larger on the.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hair.
Okay, this looks nice, but just because it looks nice doesn't mean that it's going to do its job, right? So again, when your only support is there and you've got gravity against you, this pickup is just naturally going to want to do that. It's going to want to fall out of your oil pump. So there you have it. All right, next day. So we got pretty much everything buttoned back up to where we started relative to trying to fire the motor up and seeing if there's oil pressure and everything else. So the K-member is bolted back into place now with 1/2-inch spacers. So hopefully that will give just a little bit more clearance up in the transmission tunnel area and everything else. Suspension's all bolted back on, sway bar, all that good stuff. Just enough air to force oil through the line. Sounds quiet, doesn't it? I've never been so happy to see an oil leak.
Actually pumping oil out of the car.
That means we have oil pressure. All right, dialing things in. First full heat cycle. Adding coolant, got the little bleeder screw on the top of the thermostat housing there, which works great to relieve any air out of the system.
have to check this too.
Jerry's dialing in the fuel pressure, so we got that being monitored here on the X tool. So we're in between 60 and 65.
I'll double check it.
Fan has kicked on, which is good. Car is starting, running. Transmission, we think, is sort of doing what it's supposed to. We got more transmission fluid in there. Actually, now that it's run again, we should put the car up. We'll check the fluid level and see if it's somewhere where it needs to be. But I did engage the shifter and things were spinning and doing everything that they should. So that's it, guys. It's gonna be a lot of just like little tweaks and things, and nothing very structured, just kind of going along as things arise. Like we had a couple little oil leaks from some fittings.
If you're interested.
It's sucking?
Yeah, I just heard a whistling.
Oh, mother.
So we need to shut it down.
That's not good. Putting air back in the system.
Yep. Do you want me to leave this exposed or do you want me to close it?
You put the cap on, I guess. All right.
And then as far
It's
as
closed.
As far as the bleed screw, you want to close it for now, and then we'll address it next round.
We'll close that, open up the other one, we'll put the car in the air, we'll check the transmission fluid, and then go home and drink beer.
Yes.